Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, taking a look at the Week 4 slate in a very intriguing game between 3-0 BYU and 3-0 Kansas. BYU coming off a massive win on the road against Arkansas, now head back on the road to Lawrence, Kansas, and play a Kansas team that you take a look at their first three games. You take a look at this team as a whole heading into 2023, extremely dangerous. A team we talked about in the summer as if they can get this defense going a little bit. It's one of the more dangerous teams in the Big 12, and it seems like that defense has taken some strides. Kind of two different styles here between BYU and Kansas, but really excited to get into it. Now, before we do, I just want to say thank you to you guys. The support that you guys have shown the boys for all these game breakdowns truly does mean a lot. So, one, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. But more importantly, and again, the best part about doing this is talking ball with you guys in the comment section, learning from you guys. Last week, I picked against BYU. The BYU fans let me hear it. And then 2 weeks ago, I picked against Kansas, against Illinois, and the Kansas Jayhawks, they let me hear it a little bit too. That's the best part about doing this. Appreciate y'all rocking with the boys. And without further ado, let's get into this matchup. And I do want to start with this BYU offense going up against the Kansas defense that I think it doesn't take you long to turn on the film and see this Kansas team dramatically improved on the defensive side of the ball. Last year, they allowed 5 yards per carry to opposing running backs. It was the sore spot of this Kansas team, right? They had such an elite offense, but couldn't really get off the field. They allowed teams to kind of grind them down, keep that high-powered offense on the bench. This year, I mean, only giving up 3.9 yards per carry, and you see the physicality, the speed that they have up front now. I was concerned because they lost their whole starting defensive line from last year. And no disrespect to that group last year, but it seems like Coach Leipold in the last couple transfer and recruiting cycles has consistently gotten his guys in there, and you're seeing a more talented, a faster, a more physical group up front. And that's not to mention you guys got like Kenny Logan, Marvin Grant back there who really have no problem putting their nose in and stopping the run game. This is a Kansas defense that we said if they can improve heading into 2023, we know how good this offense is. We'll get into that in a little bit. It's going to be a dangerous team in the Big 12, and it does seem like that defense has taken some steps. Now, this BYU offense, interesting offense because you take a look and you watch the games and nothing that impressive stands out, right? No statistics. They're averaging 2.7 yards per carry. Keaton Slovis taking care of the football, but only completing 61% of his balls, not really totally pushing the ball downfield. The beauty of this BYU team is they just don't hurt themselves. They play winning football. They don't turn the ball over. They don't commit penalties. And at the college football level, that gets massively overlooked. I mean, you see plenty of teams, Texas A&M probably being the best example of super talented team, but they turn the ball over, they commit penalties, and they don't win football games. This BYU team, disciplined, they are assignment disciplined, and that's kind of leading them to win these games. Now, the keys to this matchup, I think, for BYU on the offensive side of the ball is can they get the run game going again against the Kansas team that so far they've been really good against the run. The BYU's got some dogs up front, right? Kingsley Suamatia, who I think I got his name right, but if I didn't, apologies. He's going to be in the NFL next year. I'm probably a first-round draft pick. He's an absolute dog. They got some really big bodies on that offensive line. Can they establish some physicality in that run game and get something going, maybe forcing Kansas to roll a safety in, have their linebackers play a little bit more closer to the line of scrimmage? And if you can do that, I mean, you're opening up for one of the most dangerous tight ends in the middle of the field, and Isaac Rex, who a really tough injury 2 years ago, but to see him back to form as one of the more dynamic tight ends in the country, I absolutely love to see. It was a massive part of that Arkansas win last weekend. That's kind of the key. And if Kansas can stop the run, you feel pretty good about Kansas's chances. But if BYU can get that going, start working that play action, Isaac Rex over the field, this is going to be a very intriguing matchup. Now, on the flip side, I could talk for 20 minutes about this Kansas offense and how dangerous they are. Andy Kotelnicki, I don't know if there's a more impressive offensive coordinator, more fun offense to watch than what he does. And it helps when you have probably one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12 in Jalon Daniels. But how this team just puts defenders in conflict. You watch that Illinois game back. The Illinois had some young safeties, and Coach Kotelnicki put them through it in terms of confusing them, pre-snap motion, read options, all sorts of things that Kansas can do to throw off a defense. I mean, Jalon Daniels completing 75% of his passes for over 570 yards, and that's only through 2 games. Obviously, getting it done with his legs as well. The story for me, Devin Neal needs a little bit more respect on the national landscape. And he is a guy that's run for over 300 yards this year through 3 games, averaging 7.6 yards per carry. When he gets to the second level, he makes people miss like nobody else at the national level. I mean, so good in space, reading his blocks. And then you get to the wide receivers. I mean, they got 4 legitimate, dangerous wide receivers: Arnold, Skimmer, Graham, Fairchild at the tight end position. This Kansas defense can put you in conflict in so many different ways. They're one of the most balanced offenses that you see, right? Rushing for 216 yards per game, throwing for 286 yards per game. You rarely see offenses that are as balanced and can run the ball and throw the ball like the Kansas Jayhawks. And that's what makes them so dangerous and so hard for opposing defenses. Now, BYU has done a really good job on the defensive side of the ball, specifically forcing turnovers, right? 2.3 turnovers per game. Kansas, a little sloppy with the football against Nevada last week. Can BYU kind of force some turnovers, especially early, take the crowd out, which I'd note in Lawrence, Kansas, like that place is jumping. You saw Friday night against Illinois 2 weeks ago. Really good environment. Looking for BYU to maybe force some turnovers against the Kansas team that, again, when you do all that ball handling that they do, sometimes you get a little sloppy with the football. They'll need to make sure they don't do that. And then the second thing I want to talk about with BYU is the importance of just such a solid group of linebackers. I mean, Ben Bywater, Max Tooley, they fly around the field. They're always around the football. And at the college level, you have 2 linebackers that can really make up for maybe some mistakes that the defensive line makes. BYU certainly has that. And then Tyler Beatty rushing off the edge. I think this Kansas offensive line has also taken a lot of steps in the right direction. But can BYU force them into some negative plays? Because the best part about Kansas and what makes them so dangerous, they rarely take negative plays. They're always ahead of the chains, third and shorts, kind of keeping that run pass option in place. When Kansas gets behind the chains and to get into the more of that obvious passing situations, that is where they struggle. So can BYU force some negative plays, potentially some turnovers, and get Kansas behind the chains? That's probably what you're looking for BYU on the defensive side of the ball. Now, getting to the pick, I think I learned. I mean, I picked against both these teams. Both these teams have burned me in the past. Kansas at home, I think, is very dangerous, especially with how good this offense is and how many different ways it can hurt a defense. BYU, I really do like. If this game gets into a shootout, I like Kansas's offense being able to score more points more consistently than this BYU team. But again, BYU such a solid team in terms of turnovers, penalties. This is going to be a very intriguing game, but I'm going to be taking Kansas just because I trust that offense a little bit more. This does seem like it's a special year for Kansas, getting guys like Jalon Daniels back, all those wide receivers, Devin Neal. I think Coach Leipold finally kind of has that culture in place. Give me the Jayhawks at home. I expect this game to be very good. Very excited for this one. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.